The Vanishing of Amanda Berry and Friends, The Cleveland Captives, USA, 2003 to 2013. Some mysteries stretch across years like unfinished sentences. Some linger in the air long after the world believes the story has already ended. And then, every once in a while, a mystery erupts back into the light with answers no one expected, such as the case of Amanda Berry, Gina DeJesus, and Michelle Knight. 3 disappearances, 1 neighborhood, and a timeline that made investigators question fate, chance, and the terrifying possibility of an unseen puppeteer living among everyone. In 2003, Amanda Berry vanished on her way home from work. In 2004, Gina DeJesus followed, and Michelle Knight had already disappeared a year earlier, almost silently, her absence initially misunderstood, overlooked. The city searched, mourned, and waited. For 10 years, the unanswered questions piled up. Where did they go? Who took them? How could such a thing happen in a place so ordinary? But mysteries have a strange way of revealing themselves, quietly, suddenly, and often through the most unexpected cracks. When the truth finally surfaced in 2013, the world realized that the story they thought they knew was only the outline. The real tale, the hidden decade, had remained sealed inside a house no one dared to question. Welcome to Mystery Vault 80. Today we explore not just a crime, but a decade-long enigma, one that blends psychology, secrecy, community blindness, and the mysteries of survival under impossible conditions. Before we begin this journey into the shadows, remember to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your engagement helps bring more hidden stories to light and keeps our vault growing with curious minds like yours. Now, let's unravel the decade that Cleveland never saw coming. Threads of fate, the lives that would converge. Every mystery begins long before the moment something goes wrong. There are early clues hidden in the ordinary, threads that quietly weave people together before their stories collide. In the case of Amanda Berry, Gina DeJesus, and Michelle Knight, those threads stretched across Cleveland, across neighborhoods, schools, bus routes, and familiar streets, long before the world realized they were part of the same unsolved puzzle. This invites us into the quiet beginning of a mystery that would linger for a decade. Michelle Knight walked Cleveland's west side with the energy of someone who had learned to survive early. A young mother trying to regain custody of her son, she moved through her days with determination. Her world was small and strained, full of court hearings, paperwork, and temporary living arrangements. But in mysteries, the overlooked are often the ones most deeply affected. Michelle's disappearance would, at first, barely register in public consciousness, an omission that would echo painfully through the years. Amanda Berry lived a life full of dreams that seemed just within reach. At 16, she was juggling school, a part-time job, and the usual teenage chaos, friendships, late-night calls, and plans for her approaching 17th birthday. She was the kind of girl who took pictures with everyone, scribbled hearts in notebooks, and imagined a future brighter than her surroundings. On the very last day anyone saw her, she did something completely ordinary. She left work early. Ordinary, and yet crucial. Gina DeJesus was the heartbeat of her family. 14 years old, playful, curious, and loved by her community. Her disappearance would mobilize an entire city block. Volunteers filled the sidewalks. Efforts spread from homes to schools to community centers. Gina's story wasn't just a case. It became a neighborhood's desperate mission. This chapter focuses on what life looked like before the storm, because mysteries rarely begin with grand events. Instead, they unwind slowly, revealing how the smallest details, a bus route, a friendly wave, a familiar Cardinal house, an empty street at the wrong moment, can set the stage for something unimaginable. And in the center of these overlapping lives was a man who moved like a shadow between worlds. Ariel Castro, a musician, a father, a school bus driver, a neighbor who waved, fixed things, and blended into daily life without raising suspicion. But every mystery has a hidden core, and Castro's home would become the silent heart of this one. Before the disappearances, The clues were scattered like puzzle pieces no one knew they should be looking at. A passing face, a forgotten street, a simple, harmless-sounding offer a ride. No one could have predicted that these threads would eventually tie 3 young women to the same locked rooms for 10 years. In this opening chapter, we ground ourselves in the humanity of the victims and the city itself, because the deeper the mystery, the more important its beginnings become. No one knew what was coming. No one recognized the pattern, but the stage was already set. The night of the disappearance, a puzzle begins. Mysteries often begin with ordinary moments, moments so familiar they feel safe. Amanda Berry's last day was one of those quiet moments that, in hindsight, holds clues no one recognized at the time. On April 21st, 2003, Amanda finished her Burger King shift early. The evening was cool, the street lights just beginning to flicker on. She made a quick phone call to her sister, saying she had secured a ride home. Those simple words would become the center of an unanswered question that investigators, family, and the entire city would puzzle over for years. Who was the friend she rode with? No cameras captured her leaving. No witnesses clearly recalled seeing her get into a vehicle. No one recognized the voice she referred to. And yet, something or someone intercepted her within minutes. When Amanda failed to return home, concern escalated quickly. The next morning, her mother contacted authorities, setting off a chain of events that would slowly transform into one of Cleveland's most haunting mysteries. Detectives reviewed Amanda's relationships. Friends, co-workers, classmates, neighbors, anyone who might have given her a ride. But nothing matched. No one fit the description. The phone records were inconclusive. No leads pointed to runaway behavior. Stranger still, her disappearance occurred the day before her birthday, a milestone she had been excited about. She had asked her mother earlier in the week for a small celebration. Amanda had no reason to leave willingly. Community members began joining the search. Flyers were pinned everywhere. Local shops placed photos at their counters. A missing girl's face became part of the fabric of the city overnight. But this mystery grew even more unsettling when a bizarre phone call reached the Berry home. Someone claiming to be Amanda said she was fine. But the call was traced to an unknown location, and investigators couldn't confirm a voice. It eventually became clear that the call was not from Amanda, raising a new question: who was pretending to be her and why? This moment planted doubt and confusion in the investigation, pulling energy in the wrong direction and clouding the story further. The search for Amanda spiraled into dead ends. Rumors, false sightings, misleading tips, and psychic claims that led nowhere. Every potential clue fractured upon examination. Every possible direction faded into uncertainty. But what remained constant was this: Amanda had vanished without a trace. No struggle, no witnesses, no pattern. A clean disappearance is the hallmark of a well-hidden mystery, one executed with precision. And in the heart of Cleveland stood a house many passed every day, never knowing it contained the answer they'd been searching for. Amanda Berry's vanishing wasn't the end of a mystery. It was the beginning. When clues become shadows, the case grows stranger. With Amanda Berry's disappearance dominating headlines, the search evolved, but instead of bringing clarity, it brought confusion. Each new piece of information contradicted the last, and investigators began to realize something unsettling. They were not dealing with a simple missing person case. They were dealing with a puzzle designed to mislead. Detectives expanded their radius. They checked bus stations, shelters, stores, and phone booths. They analyzed maps and patterns, seeking any unusual behavior the night Amanda vanished. But no clear trail emerged. One of the earliest mysteries involved the phone call Amanda made to her sister. She said she had gotten a ride home from a friend, but no friend came forward. No car was seen. No one admitted to speaking with her. That detail alone became a paradox. How could a teenager be picked up by someone no one recognized? Then came a strange phone call received by Amanda's mother. Someone claiming to be Amanda told the family she was safe. But detectives traced the call and discovered it was not her voice. This hoax had a chilling effect. It distorted timelines, clouded assumptions, and led investigators down false paths. This was followed by an influx of conflicting public sightings. Some people claimed to see Amanda in the city, while others swore she was spotted across state lines. Psychics weighed in. Tip lines overflowed. Volunteers searched abandoned buildings. But nothing connected. Nothing made sense. The mystery deepened further when search dogs tracked a scent near a local street, but abruptly stopped as if the trail evaporated. There were no signs of struggle, no dropped belongings, no witnesses who saw anything suspicious. A disappearance with no clues is already strange. But a disappearance with clues that contradict each other is even stranger. Amanda's case began to feel like a vanishing orchestrated by someone who understood how to avoid detection, someone who left no trace. And yet, the most unsettling part of this early phase was this. Amanda was never far away. She remained hidden in a neighborhood so ordinary. Investigators drove past it daily. It was a house that held noise, laughter, a family man coming and going, and behind its walls, the beginnings of a decade-long secret. The mystery was no longer just where Amanda went. It was how she could disappear so completely without leaving a single piece of usable evidence. But the city had not reached the darkest part of the puzzle yet. Because in the following year, another girl would vanish under strikingly similar circumstances, transforming a mysterious case into a frightening pattern. A second disappearance, and a chilling pattern emerges. In 2004, nearly a year after Amanda Berry vanished, Cleveland was confronted with a baffling déjà vu. A second girl, Gina DeJesus, only 14, disappeared on her way home from school. Her last known moments were ordinary. She talked with a friend. She walked along a familiar street. She was just minutes from home. And then, nothing. This second vanishing wasn't just heartbreaking. It raised unsettling questions. Was this simply a terrible coincidence? Or was someone deliberately stalking young girls? Investigators combed the area and interviewed Gina's classmates. They mapped her last known route. They reviewed timelines, searching for irregularities. But what they found was more confusing than enlightening. One witness heard Gina speaking to a man she seemed to recognize. Another claimed she entered a vehicle voluntarily. Yet another swore she was taken by force. The contradictions piled up, clouding the truth. The mystery deepened when detectives noticed the uncanny parallels. Both girls vanished walking home. Both disappeared just before reaching their destination. Both were seen talking to someone moments before, and both left behind no physical evidence. Despite these similarities, the cases were not connected immediately. Why? Because Amanda was older, investigators partially entertained a runaway theory. Gina, being younger, triggered a more urgent abduction response. This split in assumptions fractured the investigation and kept detectives from realizing they were chasing the same ghost. Meanwhile, in the neighborhood, tension quietly built. People whispered about a possible serial abductor. Psychic hotlines buzzed with theories. Some residents claimed strange sightings, shadows in driveways, unfamiliar men watching bus stops, but nothing solid ever came from these reports. What no one realized was that both girls were already inside a house they had unknowingly walked past many times. A house whose curtains never opened. A house whose windows were covered. A house that stood silent for a reason. A house belonging to a man no one suspected. By the end of this chapter, the mystery broadens. 2 girls, 1 neighborhood, and a growing pattern that still had no explanation. But the truth, locked behind those walls, would remain hidden for nearly a decade. Inside the house, lives held in captivity. By the time 2004 came to a close, Cleveland was grappling with the mystery of 2 missing girls. Yet the full scale of horror remained hidden, unknown even to the most diligent investigators. Inside a seemingly ordinary house on Seymour Avenue, Ariel Castro had created a private world that none of the city could imagine. The house itself appeared normal from the outside. Well-kept lawns, curtains drawn, cars in the driveway. Neighbors waved at Ariel as he came and went. But within the walls of this home, life as Amanda Berry, Gina DeJesus, and Michelle Knight knew it had been stripped away. Freedom had vanished, replaced by fear, manipulation, and control. For the captives, every day followed a cruel routine dictated by Castro. Food was sparse. Privacy was non-existent. Movement was monitored. Escape was impossible. Even the act of speaking or questioning him carried tremendous risk. Each room, each door, each corridor became a symbol of the imprisonment of both body and mind. The psychological dimension of captivity was just as powerful as the physical. Castro used a combination of threats, intimidation, and sporadic kindness to maintain control. He told them that no one would ever come for them, that the world had forgotten them, and that resistance would be met with violent consequences. For 10 long years, these women existed in a perpetual state of fear, each day punctuated by survival instincts, hope, and despair. Yet life outside the house continued, unaware of the darkness concealed within. Police followed, leads across the city. Families held vigils. Volunteers conducted searches. Flyers covered telephone poles, gas stations, and grocery stores. Every missing person report, every tip, every hopeful lead, however, failed to penetrate the walls of Castro's home. The captives remained unseen, unheard, and trapped in plain sight. Time passed. Months turned into years. The community adapted to an uneasy routine, unsure whether the girls were still alive. For those inside the house, each passing year blurred into the next. Birthdays, holidays, and ordinary events became markers of endurance rather than celebration. Every small act of defiance, like whispering a prayer, memorizing a newspaper, or noting the passage of days, became acts of survival. In this chapter, we also examine the infrastructure that allowed captivity to persist unnoticed. Castro's home was strategically designed. Windows were covered. Soundproofing minimized the risk of cries being heard outside. He maintained an outward appearance of normalcy, driving, working, interacting with neighbors, activities that ensured the house appeared ordinary. To the outside world, he was a father, a neighbor, a regular man. But inside, he was a manipulator who had taken complete control. The psychology of prolonged captivity is as harrowing as the physical constraints. Victims adapt. They learn patterns. They anticipate moods. They survive by observing minute details: when to speak, when to move, and when to remain completely still. This adaptive behavior, while life-saving, also makes it nearly impossible for others to detect their suffering. It is a silent battle waged day after day, often unnoticed. As we close Chapter 5, it becomes clear this was not just a case of missing persons. It was a study in human endurance under unimaginable conditions, a tale of control, survival, and invisibility. And though the girls were trapped inside a single house, their story would echo far beyond Cleveland, capturing the attention of the world when the truth finally emerged nearly 10 years later. Life behind locked doors, control, fear, and survival. Inside the Seymour Avenue home, time moved differently. Days and nights blended into a cycle of control, fear, and desperate adaptation. For Amanda Berry, Gina DeJesus, and Michelle Knight, every action was scrutinized. Every movement, every word, every glance could trigger punishment. Outside, life went on normally. School buses ran, neighbors waved, mail carriers delivered letters. But behind closed doors, freedom had disappeared. Castro's methods of control were meticulous. He maintained an outward facade of normality to anyone passing by, smiling at neighbors, driving his car, chatting casually in public. But inside, he ruled with precision, instilling fear through unpredictability. The captives never knew when kindness might be followed by cruelty. He alternated between sporadic gestures of care, allowing extra food, small allowances of movement, and violent outbursts, ensuring their constant psychological instability. For the victims, survival required adaptation. Every day, they mapped his moods, memorized his patterns, and learned when to speak, when to remain silent, and how to move within confined spaces without attracting attention. Simple tasks like eating, drinking, or using the restroom were orchestrated by his strict rules. Privacy was non-existent. Sleep was intermittent. Hope had to be managed carefully, often in secret. The psychological toll of captivity was immense. Isolation, fear, and uncertainty eroded the mind as much as confinement did the body. Captives often developed coping strategies that outsiders would not understand. Whispering prayers, mentally recounting memories of family and friends, or marking days secretly to retain a sense of the passing time. In these moments, resilience became a lifeline, a delicate thread keeping them tethered to sanity. Castro's home itself was a tool of oppression. Windows were covered to prevent outside observation. Doors were locked and reinforced, and rooms were designed to control movement. Even small sounds could betray a plan to escape. The women quickly understood that the walls themselves were part of their imprisonment, and they learned to exist within their boundaries as carefully as they could. Meanwhile, outside the house, the world continued searching blindly. Families made calls to police. Investigators followed leads across neighborhoods, state lines, and national databases. But nothing penetrated the layers of secrecy hiding in plain sight. Tips dried up. Hope was often replaced by frustration. Yet, despite the isolation, the captives maintained fragments of hope, memories of loved ones, dreams of freedom, and quiet plans for a future that seemed almost impossible. The dynamic inside the house also highlights the complex interplay of control and survival psychology. Captors like Castro exert dominance not only through physical confinement, but through fear, unpredictability, and emotional manipulation. Victims must balance compliance with small acts of defiance, carefully navigating the line between survival and resistance. Each day became a negotiation between life and despair, visibility and invisibility, control and self-preservation. As years went by, these routines hardened into a cycle, almost imperceptible to those looking from the outside. Life in captivity became a delicate balance. Every movement measured, every glance calculated, every word considered. Yet within this darkness, the spark of resilience survived, patiently waiting for an opportunity. Chapter 6 closes with the recognition that captivity is not only a physical imprisonment, but a profound psychological battle. The women survived through adaptation, observation, and hope, holding on to the possibility that one day the world would see the truth hidden behind the locked doors. The hidden signals, subtle acts of resistance. By the midpoint of their captivity, Amanda Berry, Gina DeJesus, and Michelle Knight had become experts at navigating the dangerous environment created by Ariel Castro. Every day was a careful dance between survival and defiance. Though physically confined, they found small ways to assert their agency, communicate silently, and preserve their sense of self. These hidden acts of resistance were subtle yet powerful. Amanda learned to memorize street maps, bus schedules, and nearby landmarks, mentally preparing for a potential escape. Gina began to observe patterns in Castro's daily routine, when he left for work, when he was distracted, and how he responded to disturbances. Michelle developed strategies for conserving energy, avoiding confrontation, and maintaining hope in secrecy. Even small gestures, like sharing whispered encouragements, passing notes, or creating makeshift calendars, became acts of rebellion. These small victories reinforced their humanity, reminding them that they were more than captives. Each secret act of resistance strengthened the bond between them, fostering a quiet solidarity that Castro could not break. Psychologists studying long-term captivity emphasize the importance of mental resistance. When the physical world is tightly controlled, maintaining control of one's mind becomes essential. The women in this house displayed remarkable ingenuity and resilience. They created routines, mental escapes, and secret systems of communication that allowed them to retain a sense of autonomy and identity despite the extreme constraints. Yet, while these acts of defiance were crucial, they carried immense risk. A single misstep, speaking too loudly, making eye contact at the wrong time, or attempting a forbidden action could trigger severe punishment. The psychological tension was relentless. Each day was a test of awareness, patience, and courage. Every decision, every movement had to be carefully calculated. Outside the house, the city remained largely unaware. Police were still following leads for Amanda and Gina individually, unaware of the connection between the two disappearances. Tips and sightings led to dead ends. Meanwhile, Castro maintained the appearance of a regular, everyday man, a facade that kept the captive's world hidden in plain sight. Chapter 7 also delves into the concept of hope in captivity. Small things, a bird outside a window, a familiar song, a memory of family, became anchors in their otherwise controlled existence. These anchors provided the mental stamina needed to survive each day, subtly preparing the women for the possibility of freedom. In this chapter, we witness the resilience of the human spirit under extraordinary conditions. Physical confinement could limit movement, but it could not completely suppress ingenuity, solidarity, or hope. The captives' ability to adapt, resist, and preserve their sense of identity demonstrates the extraordinary psychological strength required to endure a decade of unimaginable circumstances. Even in the darkest, most controlled environments, human ingenuity and hope can quietly prepare the ground for liberation, though no one outside could yet see it coming. Signs missed, the outside world's failures. While Amanda Berry, Gina DeJesus, and Michelle Knight were trapped inside the Seymour Avenue home, the world outside continued its routine, unaware of the horrors unfolding just blocks away. Yet there were subtle signs, overlooked moments that, if connected, might have shortened their decade-long ordeal. This chapter examines the failures, miscommunications, and missed opportunities in the broader community and law enforcement response. From the very beginning, Amanda's disappearance had been met with urgency. Missing person reports were filed, neighborhoods searched, tips investigated. Flyers were distributed. The media ran stories. Yet, in retrospect, many leads were dismissed too quickly or deprioritized due to assumptions about runaways or misinformation. Each missed opportunity allowed Castro to maintain his facade, effectively blending into daily life. Gina's disappearance amplified these challenges. Investigators initially treated the two cases separately, failing to identify a troubling pattern. Witnesses reported strange behavior in the neighborhood, suspicious vehicles, men loitering, unusual noise, but these accounts were scattered, unverified, or outright ignored. The lack of centralized coordination contributed to a fragmented investigation that did not see the connections forming right in front of them. Meanwhile, neighbors who had casual interactions with Castro did not recognize any red flags. He was polite, charming, and outwardly normal. Many remember him as quiet or friendly, a man you wouldn't suspect of orchestrating such horrors. This highlights a crucial point. Predators can operate in plain sight, relying on societal assumptions and human trust to conceal their crimes. Even inside the law enforcement system, bureaucratic hurdles and protocol limitations slowed the search. Tip lines overflowed with leads, many of which were duplicates, false, or anecdotal. Each day spent chasing minor leads took investigators further from uncovering the truth. Technology in the early 2000s, limited phone tracking, sparse surveillance, and lack of modern databases also hindered progress, leaving crucial information unconnected. Yet within these failures, there were glimpses of hope. Some neighbors reported suspicious sounds. Local bus drivers noticed unusual behavior. Family and friends remained persistent, refusing to let the missing persons fade from attention. These small, persistent efforts became the lifeline that would, years later, help bring the captives back to freedom. Psychologically, this chapter illustrates the consequences of human oversight. While the captives adapted, resisted, and survived inside, the outside world failed to perceive the reality that existed just beyond their windows. These failures did not result from negligence alone, but from the complexity of connecting fragmented data, the hidden nature of the perpetrator, and the subtlety of manipulative control. A haunting truth emerges. Sometimes, the most significant clues exist right in plain sight. But until someone connects the dots, even the clearest signals can remain invisible. The groundwork for the eventual rescue, 10 years later, was quietly being laid by these overlooked signs, the persistence of loved ones, and the enduring spirit of those trapped inside. A decade of silence, the unseen horror. 10 years passed, and Cleveland remained haunted by the unsolved disappearances of Amanda Berry, Gina DeJesus, and Michelle Knight. For the captives, each year blurred into the next, an unbroken chain of fear, control, and endurance. For the city, the mystery grew colder with time, and hope often waned, but the threads that would eventually unravel the case were quietly forming. Inside the house, life remained a carefully orchestrated routine. Each day, the captives navigated the unpredictable temperament of Ariel Castro, balancing survival with the faint spark of hope that one day they might be free. Even after years of captivity, the women retained fragments of their identity. They remembered birthdays, family traditions, and the world outside, mental lifelines that sustained them during their darkest moments. Outside, the world began to assume the worst. Cold cases files grew thick, and the city gradually moved forward, while the families of the missing refused to forget. Volunteers, friends, and community groups kept the girls' faces in public consciousness. Anniversaries of disappearances were marked by candlelight vigils, and families tirelessly lobbied law enforcement to re-examine leads, sometimes revisiting old tips with new investigative technologies. Despite these efforts, Ariel Castro's manipulation remained effective. He kept the captives isolated, disciplined, and fearful. Each failed lead, each unconnected tip, reinforced his control. He was a master of deception, blending into the community while hiding unimaginable horrors just behind closed doors. Psychologically, the impact of a decade in captivity cannot be overstated. The captives developed coping mechanisms, from memorizing routines to creating mental games, but the constant fear and trauma shaped their daily existence. Every small victory, memorizing a route, secretly communicating, or quietly asserting independence, was a triumph of the human spirit. Chapter 9 also examines the unseen systemic failures. Early investigative missteps, lack of coordination, fragmented tips, and assumptions about runaway behavior allowed the house on Seymour Avenue to remain undetected for a decade. Each of these lapses, while unintentional, contributed to the prolonged suffering of the victims. Yet, even amidst silence, persistence endured. Families refused to give up. Investigators revisited cold cases. Neighborhoods remembered suspicious activity. And the captives, against overwhelming odds, never relinquished hope that freedom would one day come. This chapter closes with the weight of a decade-long horror. A city unaware, families desperate, captives surviving in silence, and a predator walking freely among them. The stage is set for the dramatic turning point that will finally shatter this decade of secrecy and control. Freedom at last, the rescue and revelation. In May 2013, after nearly a decade of captivity, the unimaginable finally happened. Amanda Berry, Gina DeJesus, and Michelle Knight were rescued from the house on Seymour Avenue, ending 10 years of hidden suffering. What began as a routine call for help transformed into one of the most shocking and widely publicized rescues in modern American history. The rescue began with Amanda Berry's extraordinary courage. One day, noticing an opportunity, she seized it. She escaped the house, dragging her young daughter with her, a child born during captivity, and ran to safety, screaming for help. Neighbors responded immediately, contacting authorities. Within minutes, Ariel Castro was apprehended, ending the nightmare for the women trapped inside. As news of the rescue spread, the city of Cleveland reacted in disbelief. The house that had seemed ordinary to so many had concealed horrors beyond imagination. Investigators combed through the property, uncovering evidence of prolonged abuse. Confined spaces, makeshift locks, signs of physical control, and notes that revealed the calculated and manipulative nature of the captor. The psychological and physical condition of the captives was deeply concerning. Years of malnutrition, abuse, and confinement left permanent scars. Yet, their resilience was undeniable. They had survived the unimaginable, maintained their humanity, and seized the moment to reclaim their lives. Ariel Castro's arrest brought both justice and questions. The legal system moved swiftly. Charges of kidnapping, sexual assault, and murder for hire were filed, leading to his conviction and life imprisonment without parole. The case became a symbol of vigilance, persistence, and the necessity of community awareness. Also examines the societal implications. The rescue highlighted the dangers of overlooking suspicious behavior in plain sight and emphasized the critical role that courage, vigilance, and community play in uncovering hidden atrocities. Families, neighbors, and investigators had collectively missed subtle signs over the years, but the resilience and resourcefulness of the victims ultimately overcame years of concealment. Media coverage was intense. National and international outlets broadcast the story, shining a light on the extraordinary survival and the city's failures. The women's stories became symbols of endurance, resilience, and hope. Psychological experts analyzed their recovery, exploring trauma, rehabilitation, and reintegration into a world that had moved on while they were imprisoned. As the chapter concludes, the narrative comes full circle. 10 years of captivity ended in a moment of bravery and liberation. The victims' courage, the eventual response of authorities, and the uncovering of the hidden truth transformed this case into both a cautionary tale and a story of survival against unimaginable odds. The decade of silence was over. Cleveland, the families, and the world finally knew the truth. And the women, Amanda, Gina, and Michelle, could begin to rebuild their lives, free from the shadows that had haunted them for so long. Life beyond the captivity, secrets revealed and new shadows. Freedom unveiled more than relief. It revealed secrets, consequences, and the long-reaching impact of a decade in captivity. Amanda, Gina, and Michelle stepped into a world that had moved on, but mysteries lingered. How did Ariel Castro conceal his crimes so effectively? What subtle signs were ignored? And how did the captives' ingenuity keep them alive? This chapter delves into the psychological labyrinth of survival. Victims adapted to control, found hidden signals of opportunity, and preserved hope in silence. Now, with freedom, the hidden story of their daily ingenuity can finally be told. Investigators, journalists, and psychologists pieced together clues that had gone unnoticed for years, uncovering layers of secrecy previously invisible to the public. Communities also reflected on the mysterious signals they may have missed: shadowed windows, unusual patterns, or unexplained sounds. These overlooked details become part of the larger mystery, reminding viewers that not all is ever fully seen, even in a small, familiar neighborhood. The decade-long mystery of the Cleveland captives concludes with reflection and lessons. The psychological resilience of the survivors, the lessons learned by authorities, and the enduring questions that still haunt the case. Investigators and experts analyze the methods of concealment and control, offering insight into how similar cases can be prevented or resolved sooner. The story also emphasizes vigilance, community awareness, and the subtle signs that often precede a vanishing. This final chapter invites viewers to ponder: how much of the mystery was hidden in plain sight? How do human ingenuity, courage, and patience challenge even the most calculated control? The case of Amanda, Gina, and Michelle becomes a lasting testament to hope and resilience, showing that mysteries, even those hidden for a decade, can eventually be unraveled. As this story draws to a close, the mystery of a decade-long disappearance reminds us that not everything is as it seems. The clues were hidden in plain sight, lives were trapped behind closed doors, and only courage and timing brought the truth into the light. Amanda, Gina, and Michelle's survival is a testament to human resilience, patience, and quiet heroism. If this tale of hidden secrets and long-unsolved mysteries gripped your attention, like this video, share it with friends, and subscribe to Mystery Vault 80 to explore more stories where the vanished and the unknown challenge everything we think we know. Leave a comment below. We welcome your theories, reactions, and even critiques to help us unravel more mysteries together. Stay curious, stay vigilant, and remember, the truth often hides in the shadows, waiting to be discovered.